In today's Doctor Who product review, I'm going to be taking a look at the third and final 3-pack set released as a part of the Doctor Who B&M exclusive 2019 line of action figures. As in today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the 2 Doctors collector figure set featuring the second Doctor, Peri, alongside a sontaran known as Group Marshal Stike from the 6th Doctor era. Recommended retail of this set is $19.99 and it is exclusive to B&M stores throughout the UK. Sets are now starting to appear, however something to take note of is that some stores are getting them in quicker than others, so some stores will take a little bit longer. However, the majority of B&M stores will in fact have them eventually. I do believe that as per usual these sets are around a limited run of 8,000, therefore there is enough to go around. So taking a closer look at the packaging, this is of course the brand new series style guide that did come in earlier 2019, featuring the 13th Doctor logo in the white format. At the front of the box, you do of course get this lovely preview window so we can see all of the figures on the inside of the box, including a white backdrop, showing that all 3 figures stand out. On the side of the box we have a graphic of the TARDIS logo, along with the limited edition golden sticker on the plastic. The title of the set is printed along the bottom, and at the opposite side it states that this is a Troughton product, along with being a part of the 5.5/14cm scale collector series. Flipping the box around, on the side we once again get a TARDIS graphic, and on the back we once again get your usual 5.5 collector series layout, with the title of the set at the top along the Doctor Who logo, and images of all 3 figures in the set along with the includes bubble once again. As I mentioned in the other reviews, it will be really nice to have either a little bit of informational text about the 2 Doctors as a story, maybe even some pictures of the actual characters from the episode, or a little bit of information about the actual characters within the set, very much like how we get on the Doctor and TARDIS sets. It would make the back of the product seem a little bit less bland, more packed with information. Here we have all 3 of the figures out of the box. I must admit this set is one that I predicted I think quite a while ago, because it has always been a possibility that we would most likely see these figures released at some point. Of course the second Doctor is just the reuse of the regular sculpt with a few repainted sections here and there. Peri is one that I've said in the past as well to a few people. It will be very easy to do a 2 Doctors variation by using the Chaos of Androzani body, and the very exciting figure of the set is of course Stike, the 3rd Sontaran figure that we have in fact seen as a part of the B&M exclusive line for this year. Brand new villain to go up against the 6th Doctor, which is something of which that is very welcoming for the shelf, because we hardly really have any of the monsters from the 6th Doctor era, other than Daleks, Cybermen, and of course Syl from Vengeance on Varos. Firstly, taking a look at the Doctor figure of the set, it is of course the second Doctor as portrayed by Patrick Troughton. Now this is specifically the second Doctor as an androgum, and that is the main reason why he's got those massive ginger eyebrows, which do look very unusual. However, it is at the end of the day a very easy variant for character options to do. We have already seen a second Doctor variation from the 2 Doctors as a part of the 13 Doctors set. However, this figure does in fact vary from the costume as seen within that set. There is a few adjustments to the trousers as well as the handkerchief. So taking a closer look at the costume, of course the vast majority of Doctor Who figure collectors will already have a second Doctor as a part of their collection, and therefore due to this figure using exactly the same sculpt, you naturally know exactly what to expect. So we have the coat over the top, which is the same for every second Doctor figure. Once again, this is just a standard black plastic and does have a really lovely material effect added over the top. There's many different creases, especially around the big baggy pocket section at the very bottom, and of course the creases do stretch all the way around the costume. On the very back there's no paint taps really, however we do have a few stitching lines here and there, along with the very subtle inclusion of 2 buttons at the back as well. Usually this whole set does have a very greasy texture. It's almost like they've added a lubricant over the top of them when putting them into the packaging, because the Sontaran was like it when I first opened it, and so was Peri, so I don't quite know what they were doing with the factory with these figures. I don't know, but yeah, I think that generally once you've wiped that off it is absolutely absolutely fine, although the jacket itself does have a rather glossy texture. We have the inclusion of the standard Second Doctor shirt. This time round it has been coloured in a rather nice light blue design, along with the paint application of the buttons brought out with a nice white paint app, which is something that would normally be missed out of the previously released B&M figures. However, it is nice to see that character are now going above and beyond to actually include some of those smaller details. Always, the Second Doctor's tie is on a little bit of an angle, and this time round it has been painted a rather dark blue with some white polka dots added over the top in a rather intricate manner. Of course, one of the main constant changes for Second Doctor figures is the patterning on the handkerchief, as that is normally the character options method of defining the different costumes from different episodes. And even though this Second Doctor is from the same story as the one from the 13 Doctors set, they've once again revised this design to be a little bit more simplified compared to the one previously released. So this time round we just have a rather murky, almost yellowy design, along with an orange stripe added over this. I do like the 13 Doctors set one a lot more. It certainly stands out and is a lot more vibrant, and this one is kind of just a much duller version, sadly. Second Doctor's hands have been sculpted in the standard manner, one of which in the open palm position, and the other to hold the flute accessory that this figure doesn't in fact come with. Moving down the costume now to the trousers, this is where the next big variation takes place compared to the one within the 13 Doctors set. Looking closely, the entirety of the trousers have been coloured in a rather light grey, almost greenish tint base colour. For the top of this we have a series of grey squares, along with a darker black square design added over the top where the regular rose would normally be, which is a really lovely design. And finally, the Second Doctor's shoes are once again just painted in a light brown design, which I do believe is a lighter brown paint app compared to the one within the 13 Doctors set. For those of you that haven't realised yet, by this point in the video I have been attempting to refrain from using a comparison with the Second Doctor from the 13 Doctors set, because for those of you that know the layout of my collection, the 13 Doctors set is at the very back, and it would take quite a lot of effort to try and get it out, and quite frankly I could not be arsed. However, it's got to this point in the video where I've just caved in, and here is your comparison with the 13 Doctors set Second Doctor figure. Now, I think there is a rather striking difference between the two, and something of which I wouldn't have in fact realised without getting this figure out of the box. The design of this figure is a lot darker than this version. As you can see, the shirt is one example of it being much more vibrant. However, it has to be said, I do like the 13 Doctors set one more. I just think it has something about it that feels a little bit more real. I also like the colour tone used on the face compared to this version that almost seems to be a little bit too orangey, and no, I'm not on about the eyebrows, I'm on about the actual skin tone itself. And the only thing that I kind of like from this version that I would like to see on this version is maybe the similar design of the trouser pattern replicated on this Second Doctor, as this one is certainly a lot more basic in its design. It just seems to be very simplified, whether this one seems to be rather complex. So now taking a look at the likeness to Patrick Troughton, once again exactly the same sculpt to every other Second Doctor figure that we've first seen at SDCC 2009, that was of course released alongside the Tomb Cyberman. Now this is a really lovely sculpt generally, and a great likeness to Patrick Troughton. I really love the way that they've replicated the eye bags under the eyes, as well as the lines around the mouth, and I think that the paint application, especially on the mouth itself, does also seem rather natural. The eyes have also been painted in a rather nice manner, including the eye whites as well as the bright blue iris, and then of course we have the elephant in the room, the big massive androgum orange eyebrows, which are very unusual, look completely off-putting, and you certainly couldn't get away with using this figure as just a regular Second Doctor. Just bringing on a comparison with your regular Second Doctor figure from the 13 Doctors set, once again I think that maybe the paint application on this figure might be a little bit sharper than the B&M version. I think that this one is definitely a lot more simplified in its design, and then of course you do have the detailing on the hair as well. On the 13 Doctors set version, this is a darker, almost blackish colour with the grey highlight added over the top, and I do believe that this Second Doctor here from the B&M set is in fact the exact opposite of that. We have the lighter colour as the base colour, and then that darker black added over the top to give the hair a little bit of highlight and to bring out the details of the different strands of hair. It certainly makes the Second Doctor look a little bit older, which is the general idea. However, I do think that the 13 Doctors set one does look a little bit more natural. And as you can quite obviously see, I'm getting my most out of bringing this figure out of the box for the first ever time in, I would like to say, probably 3 years. Also, whilst all of the figures are out of the box, here is a comparison with all of the other Second Doctor figures within my collection. As you can see, all using exactly the same sculpt, however quite a variety of different paint apps. Next figure of the set is of course the 6th Doctor companion Peri, as portrayed by Nicola Bryant, who I did of course just recently meet at London Film and Comic Con, and she's a really lovely person indeed, and I do absolutely adore Peri as a companion as well. Now this figure does of course use the base sculpt of the Caves of Androzani Peri, however it has been given the appearance of her look within the two Doctors, her rather dazzling 80s look. So getting straight onto it, we have the blouse thing that Peri is wearing. Now in the story, this is kind of an 80s metallic top. It looks very unusual in different lights. It's almost shimmering and it's very rainbowy, and naturally that is very hard to replicate within the 5.5 action figure plastic format. However, I think that Character Options have done a pretty decent job, and certainly the sculpt has come in handy. It is a drastic change from the Peri figure as seen within the Caves of Androzani set, just bringing on that figure as a comparison. Of course that is a fairly normal costume really, just using a few checkers and things here and there, and this one is far from normal. It is a very unusual design. We have a pink base colour and then this green shimmer almost applied over the top in a rather nice glossy design. This is also prominent on the back as well, a little bit more so, and that is of course within the creases and things. I don't quite know what they've used to replicate this design, but it's kind of like a greenish yellowy shimmery colour, which does look cool. As I say, it does the job, however it does look awfully 80s. Moving down the figure to address the other elephant in the room, it is those arms. Some of you might be thinking, what about the arms? They look absolutely normal. However, look at them again and keep looking at them for a number of seconds, because after a while they start to look a little bit long and lanky, and that is because they've done something very unusual by using the sculpt once again of the Caves of Androzani Peri and then applying over the top of this the regular and original Vengeance on Varos variation of Peri, meaning that her arms are essentially double the length, as you can see. So they've used the arm section from this section here would already come down to her wrist, so they've essentially extended her arm by an extra wrist entirely, and that does mean that the figure looks a little bit lanky and unusual. It's not too noticeable if you kind of make her bend her arms back a little bit like that, as you can see, but it does also look like she's a bit stiff. But too much of an issue, it just looks a little bit odd. Of course, Peri's costume throughout season 22 did vary from a number of different coloured jumpsuity kind of things. Therefore, the bottom of this figure is basically just a direct reuse of the shorts that were used on the original Vengeance on Varos variation of Peri, once again with the cyan blue, meaning that the same details have once again came across, and in fact this sculpt is used on every single variation of Peri, because shorts on the Caves of Androzani variation are also exactly the same, just pink. So we do also have the paint application of the red belt, which is fairly nice, however a little bit of a runny paint app. It's not as sharp as the original Forbidden Planet exclusive version, and we do also have the inclusion of the yellow keychain as well. However, this time round it is missing that further red design, which is prominent on the Forbidden Planet exclusive one. Taking a look at the very back, once again we do have a few details of your pockets and a few more creases. Now moving down the figure to the very bottom, we just have your standard Peri legs really, that are just your standard skin tone, and then we do also have the shoes, or the high heels even, at the very bottom, which this time round have been painted a standard cream colour, much like the Caves of Androzani version, as opposed to the rather vibrant red of the Vengeance on Varos Peri. Of course, the Two Doctors is a rather exciting story, seeing the 6th Doctor and 2nd Doctor team up. However, it wasn't in fact in England, it was located in Seville, meaning that the cast and crew needed to venture to Seville, meaning that they got a little bit of a tan throughout filming the story, and that tan is in fact replicated on this figure, as we do have a slightly darker skin tone that has been used compared to the other Peri figures that seem to be more of a regular skin tone seen on the majority of figures. This time round, she is a rather healthy bronze colour. Then of course do have the paint application over the top of the lips as well, which are a rather vibrant pink, and we do also have the sharper paint application around the eyes, including the iris, and of course the eyebrows in there as well. The hair itself is exactly the same sculpt to usual, featuring a few strands and things here and there, nicely bring out the detail. However, this is just your standard basic colour really, there's not really too much else to it. It may have been nice to have a wash of colour over the top of this just to bring out the detail a little bit more, however this is not present. In the story, Peri did of course also have a headband which has been replicated on this figure simply by using just a strip of pink, which is in fact a rather sharp job for a B&M set. I would have imagined this being absolutely horrific on some figures, having different dots of paint absolutely everywhere, but on the most part, the majority of the bands that I've seen on Peri's forehead are in fact pretty decent and well placed indeed, and is once again a nice inclusion on this figure to set it apart from the others. Here is a comparison of the Two Doctors variant of Peri alongside the other Peris within the Classic Series collection so far. And saving the most exciting figure of the set until last, it is of course Group Marshal Stike, once again from the Two Doctors, featuring a brand new head sculpt along with your standard Sontaran helmet. However, it is to note that this Sontaran does not come with the gun accessory, unlike Lynx and Steyr from the other B&M 2019 collector set, which is a little bit unusual, especially considering that the figure has the stick holder on the side of the thigh. Taking a closer look at the costume, of course I have already reviewed the Sontaran Classic Series costume already within this series, having reviewed Lynx and Steyr, which do of course share exactly the same sculpt. However, this figure does have a few slight alterations and unique parts. So starting off at the very top, we do have the neck section, which this time round has been painted a rather vibrant silver, and then we have the rest of the body, which is sculpted as per usual in a rather lovely manner. Of course, this is in a black plastic, however the actual sculpt itself really nicely replicates that padded material seen on the actual costume, having lots of different pinstripes, including lots of different stretch marks around the actual material itself, which does also stretch around to the back, where also a probic vent on the very back of the neck is also present. Of course, at the bottom of this section around the waist of the figure, we do also have the inclusion of this banded section, like on Lynx and Steyr. However, unlike those other figures, this time round it has been slightly shortened down. This has simply been achieved by painting over the bottom band that would normally be silver, which I think this does look a little bit messy. And of course, along from this we do have the Communicator, which this time round once again has received a little bit of an updated paint app, this time round including a blue panel around the front, along with a series of different buttons and dials around the side, which once again for a B&M set, this has in fact been rather nicely detailed. Taking a look at the lower half of the figure, once again that material black design does continue, and we have the inclusion of the holster on the side of the thigh as well, which is a little bit unusual considering that this figure does not come with any accessory weapon. And then of course towards the very bottom we have the inclusion of the Lynx sculpt this time round, which is of course the Wellington boot design as opposed to the more Steyr armoured boot. However, once again this has been given a rather unusual paint app, with the top half of the boot being a glossy black, much like the rest of the body, and then the bottom half having this unusual almost golden design, which is also on the midpoints of the different limbs, which I suppose this is meant to be replicating a shoe kind of design possibly, as opposed to a boot. However, it works okay, I guess. I think that the golden section on the actual bottom half is that subtle, you don't really notice it too much, and if you don't look too carefully, the whole boot does in fact look black anywhere. The Group Marshal Stike figure does borrow the hands of the Lynx figure, of course having the 3 fingers as opposed to the 5 that Steyr does of course have. However, this time round they have been painted to match the skin tone of Stike's head. When looking at the Stike figure face on, it does in fact look a little bit slimmer than all of the other Sontarans that have been released as a part of the line, and that is because the elbow pads and knee sections have in fact been removed, just bringing on some of the previously released Forbidden Planet exclusive versions, including Lynx and Commander Score from the Invasion of Time. As you can see, we have these padded sections here at the top half of the boots, as well as on the elbows, which this time round these have been removed. It does look a little bit unusual, and of course it's not meant to be like this. Of course these sections are meant to be over the limbs, however they've taken them off to make the figure look more like the Sontaran as seen throughout the Two Doctors, and I don't think it looks too bad. And giving a closer look at basically what they've done, instead of the shoulder pads we have once again this rather unusual bronze design and then some silver bands around this, and the same does also apply for the knee sections as well. And as I say, it does look a little bit unusual. It does essentially look like they're just painting over the old sculpt and kind of hiding it, which is essentially what they are doing, but it kind of works, as I say, for a budget set. And of course, to finish off, the most exciting part of the figure is the brand new head sculpt. Very much like Harry Sullivan, it is amazing to see a brand new head sculpt within the classic series, and something of which that a lot of collectors certainly were not expecting. And simply through the use of this brand new head, it sets this figure apart from all of the others, and it makes it look like a brand new Sontaran figure, which is absolutely perfect. And they've replicated the mask as seen on Stike throughout the two Doctors excellently. They've really captured the character. I really love the way that they've emphasised the eyes. There is some really lovely paint application around them, including the eye whites in the very middle, and then the darker almost eyelids and eye bags around the opposite side as well, once again creating some depth within the actual mask. And then of course we have that very strong jawline in there as well, replicated on each side of the face, and that rather long mouth in the very middle, tinted with a rather fleshish tone highlight. And then of course, much like Lynx, this figure does have a little bit of facial hair, it seems. We have a little bit of a yellow beard at the very bottom, and then we do have the eyebrows as well. Now I think that this is the only part of this likeness that I don't particularly like too much, because it does look like the eyebrows have simply just been painted on as opposed to sculpted on, so it would have been nice to maybe see a part of the sculpt that raised these up just a little bit, maybe added a bit of this almost fur texture at the very bottom like we have here on the beard, but on the eyebrows in a much smaller sort of pattern, just to make these look, as I say, a little bit less painted on. So of course around the sides of the face we get the rather large ears that Stike does of course have. He looks a little bit like Dumbo, to say the least. And then of course around the very back we do have a few more little bits of scuff marks and things, much like how you would normally expect on a regular Sontaran. Not that you would want to, because the new head sculpt is basically the major selling point of this figure. As it is a Sontaran, it does come with the helmet, so that means that you can cover up the head sculpt. This is once again the Lynx helmet, therefore it has been painted a rather lovely and vibrant silver. However, this time round, the dotted design in the very middle with fleet and rank motif, this time round has been given a rather nice greyish paint app. Something that is rather subtle, not necessarily needed, but I like the fact that it's been done. And I think what I love most about the Group Marshal Stike sculpt, alongside the Forbidden Planet exclusive Lynx, along with the Forbidden Planet exclusive Field Major Steyr figure, is that this new figure looks like it could be a part of the previous exclusive range. It has so much character, it has so much detail, it's a worthy Sontaran to add to the collection, along with of course Commander Score as well, from the Invasion of Time, which I do always forget about, and he does also have a slightly dodgy leg, as you can see. Group Marshal Stike is a brilliant and welcome addition to the collection, and kind of completes the main Commander Sontarans that we did of course see throughout the classic series. I kind of came to the conclusion that if you have the original Forbidden Planet exclusive Steyr and Lynx figures, then the previous two B&M exclusive figures of the re-released Steyrs and Lynx can kind of just double up as regular Trooper Sontarans really, and just keep their helmets on, as opposed to having the potato head exposed underneath, because the likenesses on the current B&M exclusive ones aren't as good as the originals. And so overall, for the Doctor Who B&M exclusive 2019 The Two Doctors collector figure set, once again another nice series of variants to add to the classic figure collection. And I think that the new head sculpt on Stike definitely makes this set worth buying. If you are a classic figure collector and have got all of the previous Sontaran releases, then this product is definitely one that is worth picking up, especially given that the Sixth Doctor doesn't really have too many monsters or villains within his era in action figure form, and this is a really lovely one to add to the shelf, with an absolutely phenomenal likeness to Stike from the story. The Second Doctor is also a really nice additional variant. Of course, the Second Doctor as an androgum is very easy to recreate, just having the big massive furry eyebrows, and it does stand out certainly a lot on the shelf compared to the other Second Doctors. However, it's nothing really too special if you've got the previous releases. And as for Peri, once again another vibrant variant, a nice addition to the collection, quite expected to crop up within the B&M set of re-releases at some point, simply because it was so easy to do using the pre-existing sculpts. And my only main issue with it is those arms, which do look absolutely ridiculous. You can get away with it at some angles, but I think it would have just been easier to use the regular Caves of Androzani sculpt without the Hands of the Vengeance on Varos figure added onto them. And that does of course bring to an end my Doctor Who B&M exclusive 2019 collector set reviews, having taken a look at both TARDIS releases, all 3 triple sets, and of course the 3 Big Finish Doctor Dalek sets as well. Naturally, if you're interested by any of the other products released as a part of this series, go and check out all of my reviews. I've done reviews of every single product from this range, and of course stay tuned on the Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content every single week, covering many different eras of the show, from the Doctor Who audio dramas, from the products and merchandise, from the vinyl records, and even Doctor Who books. So thank you very much for watching, have a nice day, and we'll see you all next time. Bye for now.